What do Egyptian pharaohs, European royalty, and a few infamous families have in common? A shocking habit of keeping things all in the family. Spoiler alert, it didn't always go well. Throughout history, many powerful families made some questionable choices, especially when it came to marriage and parenthood. Often motivated by a desire to preserve wealth, keep bloodlines pure, or maintain family estates, these decisions rarely ended well. From ancient monarchs to modern scandals, today we're exploring 17 of the worst cases of incest and inbreeding in history. Stick with us for jaw-dropping stories of how these choices shaped and sometimes ruined entire dynasties. And fair warning, things are about to get strange. Let's dive in. Alexei Romanov. Alexei Romanov, the grandson of Queen Victoria, inherited hemophilia. This genetic disorder is often called the royal disease. It is called this because of its normalcy among European royals because they practiced inbreeding. His condition caused life-threatening bleeding episodes, making his survival uncertain. In desperation, his mother, Tsarina Alexandra, turned to the mystic Rasputin. She hoped his unorthodox treatments could save her son. Rasputin quickly gained influence in the royal court. Alexandra and Tsar Nicholas II believed his treatments worked wonders for Alexei. But many in the aristocracy and the Russian public were suspicious of Rasputin's character and methods. He was known for his alcoholism, sexual promiscuity, and occult interests. So, Rasputin became a symbol of corruption and decay within the monarchy. His growing power only added to the discontent among the Russian people. It eventually created a divide between the royal family and their subjects. The combination of Alexei's illness and Rasputin's influence over the imperial family fueled unrest. In 1917, the Russian Revolution erupted, leading to the downfall of the Romanovs. It's still debated whether Alexei's condition directly contributed to the revolution, but it's clear that the royal family's handling of the situation didn't help. By 1918, the Romanovs were executed and Russia transitioned into a communist state under Lenin. Queen Victoria's legacy linked to this inherited disease played an unexpected role in the collapse of the Russian monarchy. Thomas Rood. In 1672, Thomas Rood committed a crime that shocked the community. This crime also led to a major legal shift in what would later become Connecticut. At the time, there were no laws against incest. Rood got his daughter Sarah pregnant, and the colony had no framework to handle the situation. In a bid to address the crime, the governor turned to a group of ministers who advised that incest should be treated as a capital offense. This led to Rood becoming the first and only man in U.S. history to be executed for incest. But the case didn't end there. Authorities eventually acknowledged that Sarah Rood had been assaulted and exonerated her. This cleared her of any wrongdoing. This tragic story set a legal precedent, but also highlighted the need for laws protecting victims like Sarah from such abuse. This case had a lasting impact on the legal system. It emphasized the importance of victim protection and the necessity for clearer laws surrounding such heinous crimes. The legacy of Thomas Rood's crime continues to echo the importance of legal reforms designed to prevent and address similar atrocities in the future. Ancient Irish royal family. DNA analysis of Neolithic remains from the Newgrange tomb in County Meath has revealed a shocking truth about ancient Irish kings. Experts from Trinity College Dublin discovered that a man buried in the tomb was the product of first-degree incest. This means his parents were likely siblings, or even a parent, and their child. It is a revelation that has offered a glimpse into the dynastic practices of Ireland's ancient elite. The act of incest is typically a taboo across societies, but it seems to have been used by this elite family to maintain their bloodline and power. By breaking such deep-rooted societal rules, they positioned themselves above the norms, much like the Inca kings and ancient Egyptian pharaohs. These ancient royals also practiced similar methods of ensuring the purity of their bloodlines, which helped solidify their status as a rarefied elite. Inbreeding among royals was seen as a means of preserving their bloodline. But it was also a way to maintain a strict hierarchy, keeping the elite separate from the general population. The discovery also sheds light on Ireland's prehistoric social structure. It revealed a powerful kin group with access to elite burial sites across the island. This practice continued for at least 500 years. It underscores the dynasty's influence on early Irish society and the lengths they went to preserve their power and prestige. The Mad Queen of Portugal. Maria the Mad was the first queen to rule Portugal in her own right, but her reign was overshadowed by mental health challenges. Her struggles were possibly influenced by the centuries-old practice of intermarriage. This was pretty prominent within her family, the House of Braganza. This tradition led to numerous health complications. Maria's own condition is a great example of this. Her mental health began to deteriorate in the late 1780s after the death of her husband, eldest son, and confessor. She experienced episodes of mania and depression. Modern doctors might diagnose it as bipolar disorder. In 1792, Dr. Francis Willis, who had also treated King George III of England, declared her insane. She went through some very harsh treatments like ice baths and blistering, but her condition worsened, rendering her unable to carry out her royal duties. Two of her sisters suffered from similar mental health issues, plus her son, who inherited her genetic legacy, also faced health challenges. Maria's story highlights the severe and often overlooked effects of royal inbreeding. It casts a long shadow over her legacy and reign. Her decline highlights the potential risks associated with dynastic intermarriage. King Tutankhamun. King Tutankhamun has captivated the world for decades, thanks to the discovery of his nearly intact tomb in 1922. His golden mask became an iconic symbol of ancient Egypt. But the truth about his life and death remained shrouded in mystery until recent scientific advancements. A virtual autopsy and DNA analysis of Tut's mummy have revealed startling details about his health and family history. Tut, who ascended to the throne at just 9 years old, was far from the idealized, robust ruler often depicted in art. He had a clubbed foot, scoliosis, a cleft palate, and required a cane to walk. These physical ailments, which some researchers suggest may have been linked to inbreeding, were observed in several Egyptian royals. After all, they did quite often marry close relatives to preserve the bloodline. DNA testing also revealed that Tut's parents were siblings. This is a fact that may explain his frailty and the multiple health conditions he suffered from. These included malaria and a degenerative bone disease. His early death at 19 is thought to have been caused by a combination of these factors. These factors included a fractured thigh bone that may have become infected. Despite his tragic health issues, King Tut's reign, though brief, left an enduring legacy. His tomb, filled with treasures, has provided invaluable insight into ancient Egyptian life and death. Today, King Tut is not just remembered for his wealth, but for the powerful reminder of the consequences of royal inbreeding. Ferdinand I of Austria. Ferdinand I, Emperor of Austria, was a striking example of the consequences of royal inbreeding. He was born in 1793 to Holy Roman Emperor Francis II, Francis I of Austria, and Maria Theresa of Naples and Sicily. Both of Ferdinand's parents were double first cousins, sharing all 4 grandparents. This genetic closeness likely played a significant role in Ferdinand's health problems. You see, he suffered from several. These included speech difficulties and seizures. He also dealt with hydrocephalus. This is an accumulation of fluid around the brain. Some reports even suggest he had cognitive impairments. Ferdinand's royal lineage may have contributed to certain genetic complications, but it is not definitively established. They did like to keep it all in the family. Despite these challenges, Ferdinand was known for his good-natured demeanor. This earned him popularity among his subjects. His large head, a result of the hydrocephalus, became one of his defining features, visible in portraits of the emperor. He was also said to have had a seizure during his 1831 wedding to his distant cousin Maria Anna of Piedmont, Sardinia. They would never have children. Ferdinand's reign as emperor was relatively peaceful, but political unrest in 1848 forced him to abdicate. Remarkably, his health issues didn't seem to shorten his life, as he lived until 1875, passing away at the age of 82. Though his royal lineage may have contributed to his disabilities, Ferdinand's ability to endure a long life and maintain his position speaks to his resilience. John Phillips. The Mamas and the Papas were renowned for their iconic harmonies in hits like California Dreamin' and Monday, Monday. The band epitomized the carefree bohemian spirit of the 1960s. Yet behind the sunny exterior, a dark and disturbing truth lay hidden. John Phillips was beloved for his musical contributions, but his daughter Mackenzie Phillips revealed shocking details about their relationship in 2009. In her memoir, High on Arrival, Mackenzie described a decade-long incestuous abuse starting when she was just 19. The abuse began the night before her wedding in 1979. After a night of heavy drug use, Mackenzie awoke to find her father assaulting her. The relationship continued, manipulated by drugs, until it ended when Mackenzie became pregnant. She feared her father might be the father. John Phillips reportedly paid for an abortion, bringing the abusive cycle to a close. Mackenzie later opened up about how her relationship with her father became consensual. It continued even after they both sought rehab. The two even toured together as part of the New Mamas and the Papas in the 1980s. The revelation stunned fans of the group. This contrasted sharply with the image of peace and love they had cultivated. Mackenzie Phillips has since moved on and has found happiness. Maria Antonia of Austria. Maria Antonia of Austria holds a very unfortunate distinction. She has the highest known inbreeding coefficient within the Habsburg dynasty. It even surpassed that of Charles II of Spain. Born in 1669, Maria Antonia was the daughter of Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I and his wife, Margaret Teresa of Spain. In an alarming twist of genetic history, Leopold was both her mother's uncle and first cousin, leading to a highly inbred lineage. This union resulted in a coefficient of 0.3053 for Maria Antonia. This figure is even higher than that of children born from incestuous unions between parents and their offspring, or full siblings. Despite this intense genetic strain, Maria Antonia appeared largely unaffected by the inbreeding. She lived a relatively normal life, though her early family history was marked by tragedy. She was the couple's only surviving child after multiple infant deaths. This could likely be due to the genetic issues caused by her parents' close relationship. In fact, her mother, Margaret Teresa's own early death in childbirth, was speculated to be the result of a weakened genetic system. Maria Antonia was originally intended to marry her uncle, Charles II, but the marriage was called off due to their young ages. Charles was only 12 and Maria was 6, along with the urgent need for heirs. Instead, Maria married Maximilian II of Bavaria. They had several children before her untimely death in 1692 at the age of just 23 due to complications from childbirth. Despite her brief life, her family's troubled legacy had lasting effects on European politics. Niels Lykke. Niels Lykke, a 16th-century Norwegian noble, is well remembered. He is remembered both for his role in Henrik Ibsen's play Lady Inger of Ostrat and for the scandalous events that led to his grim demise. After the death of his wife Elina in 1532, Niels sought comfort in her sister Lucy. While his wife was no longer living, the relationship was still considered incestuous under the law. This sparked a legal and social uproar. To avoid prosecution, Niels attempted to annul his marriage to Elina, but his actions only intensified the conflict. His brother-in-law, a powerful noble, was furious at the audacity of Niels's actions. Tensions escalated even more when Niels and Lucy conceived a child. The scandal quickly spread, reaching the archbishop. He made sure that Niels would face justice for his transgressions. In 1535, Niels was convicted of incest and, in a bizarre and brutal form of punishment, was sentenced to be smoked to death. This gruesome execution matched the intensity of his crime and left a lasting mark on history. Niels' life, full of ambition, controversy, and tragedy, ended in a way that ensured his name would not be forgotten. His story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of defying societal norms. His tragic end lives on in both historical accounts and fictionalized portrayals. Ludwig II of Bavaria. King Ludwig II of Bavaria, often dubbed Mad King Ludwig, is remembered for his eccentricities and the dramatic decline of his reign. Born into the inbred house of Wittelsbach in 1845, Ludwig ascended to the throne in 1864. Despite being engaged to his cousin Sophie, Ludwig's affections were never for women. Instead, he harbored a profound attraction to the composer Richard Wagner. He even financially supported Wagner in exchange for his attention and affection. Ludwig's intense devotion to Wagner and his isolated, reclusive nature only deepened over time. This contributed to his fragile mental state. Rather than governing, Ludwig fixated on grand architectural projects. He focused on creating fairy tale castles that became his world of escape. The most famous of these, Neuschwanstein Castle, was a fantastical structure built atop a mountain in the Bavarian Alps. The castle was inspired by Wagner's operas. Unfortunately, Ludwig's excessive spending on these projects plunged him into debt. This ultimately led to his ousting. In 1886, he was declared insane and removed from the throne. Just days later, Ludwig's body was found in Lake Starnberg, with his death officially ruled a suicide. However, some suspect foul play, as his psychiatrist, who had declared him insane, was also found dead in the same lake, leading to theories of murder. Ludwig's behavior was once thought to be indicative of schizophrenia, but modern experts argue that his actions might have been driven by a personality disorder rather than full-blown mental illness. Today, the castles he built, particularly Neuschwanstein, remain major tourist attractions, drawing millions of visitors annually. Cleopatra. Cleopatra, the seventh, the last active ruler of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty, was born into a family known for scandal and intrigue. One of these was a long history of incestuous relationships. Her ancestors, the Greek Ptolemies, had a peculiar approach to royal marriage. They aimed to keep power within the family by marrying siblings and cousins. Cleopatra herself continued this tradition. She married her younger brother Ptolemy XIII and later her other brother Ptolemy XIV. However, political rivalry led to her exile by Ptolemy XIII, prompting Cleopatra to ally with Julius Caesar. She ultimately regained power. Then her brother, Ptolemy XIV, was either poisoned or died under suspicious circumstances. This secured her position. While Cleopatra's family might have been inbred, the effects of this seem less apparent in her rule. Researchers have speculated that generations of inbreeding could have contributed to physical and mental issues, but Cleopatra herself did not show obvious signs of genetic problems. She ruled Egypt for 21 years. She bore 4 children, but don't worry, none were by her family members. This suggests that there might have been more diversity in her gene pool than previously assumed. Historically, Cleopatra was seen as a legendary beauty, but recent evidence suggests she may have been far from the conventional standards of attractiveness. Based on archaeological reconstructions, Cleopatra had a fleshy face, hawk-like nose, and protruding chin. These were all traits shared by other members of her inbred family. Despite her less than stunning appearance, Cleopatra's political intelligence and charm were the true keys to her success. This made her one of history's most iconic rulers. Princess Nahianaena of Hawaii. In ancient Hawaiian society, the social structure was strictly hierarchical. Commoners, known as Maka'ainana at the bottom, Konohiki in the middle, and the Alii, or high chiefs, at the top. The Alii were further divided into smaller ranks, and the Kapu system demanded absolute reverence for them. It was expected that commoners would bow or even lie face down in the presence of a chief. Violating these sacred rules could result in severe punishment, including death. But in the early 19th century, the Kapu system was abolished by royal decree. As a result of their elevated status, the Alii faced unique challenges in selecting spouses. To preserve their bloodline and maintain their superior rank, royal marriages often involved unions between close relatives. This sometimes even included first-degree siblings. These incestuous marriages were not considered taboo, but rather a sign of the highest status. The offspring of these unions were seen as even more powerful. But when European settlers arrived in Hawaii, they were horrified by this practice. One of the most poignant examples is the story of King Kamehameha III and his sister Nahianaina. The two were very close, and their desire to marry reflected the old ways of the Alii. However, under pressure from Christian missionaries, Nahianaina was persuaded to marry another man. Despite this, it is believed she had a child with her brother, who tragically died soon after birth. Nahianaina herself died young, at about 20 years old. Inbreeding in the Hawaiian monarchy has often been exaggerated in Western narratives, but genetic drawbacks were rare. The culture's emphasis on physical and mental fitness, along with healthier lifestyles, likely helped to reduce the impact of inbreeding. Thomas Weir. In 17th century Edinburgh, witches typically practiced their dark arts in secrecy, only exposed when caught in the act. But Major Thomas Weir shocked the city when he openly confessed to being in league with the devil. A respected Presbyterian who always dressed in black, Weir's sudden admission baffled those around him. At first, his confession seemed unbelievable, but then a disturbing twist emerged. Weir also admitted to an incestuous affair with his sister, Jean Grisel, who corroborated his claims. The authorities were left with no choice but to act swiftly. The siblings were tried, convicted, and executed in 1670. Thomas Weir was garroted and burned at the stake, while his sister was hanged. Their confessions included bizarre stories of witchcraft and supernatural powers. These only deepened the mystery of their motives. Weir's walking stick, topped with a carved human head, was rumored to have strange powers. His sister spoke of a fiery coach that had once carried him to Dalkeith, where he supposedly gained supernatural intelligence. Following their deaths, Weir's house, known as Major Weir's Land, stood vacant for over a century, feared to be haunted. Those who dared to live there reported eerie occurrences, including strange apparitions. The ghostly legacy of Weir and his sister persisted for decades, with the area still known for its unsettling reputation. Some have suggested that Weir's story may have inspired Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, cementing its place in eerie folklore. Paracina Malatesta. In 1812, Lord Byron wrote a 586-line narrative poem titled Paracina, which recounts a tragic tale from medieval Italy. The story centers on Niccolo III d'Este, the ruler of Ferrara. He discovers that his wife, Paracina Malatesta, has had an affair with his eldest son, Ugo d'Este. The affair's authenticity is shrouded in uncertainty, of course. Ugo and Paracina were not biologically related, as Ugo was the illegitimate son of Niccolo and a previous lover, Stella de Tolomei. The affair was perceived as incestuous by the court, contributing to tragic consequences. In 1425, both Paracina and Ugo were executed by beheading, their deaths marking a gruesome end to a scandalous chapter in Ferrara's history. After the executions, Niccolo III's life continued, though marked by further intrigue. In 1429, he remarried Ricciarda of Saluzzo, and together they had 2 children. The couple lived out their years in relative peace, but Niccolo's life ended brutally. On Boxing Day in 1441, he was poisoned, ending his reign and marking another violent chapter in the history of the Este family. Byron's Paracina immortalized this complex and tragic tale. It explored themes of love, betrayal, and the destructive consequences of power. Despite the uncertainty surrounding the affair itself, the poem's vivid narrative continues to captivate readers with its emotional depth and historical intrigue. Charles II of Spain. King Charles II of Spain, born in 1661, is often regarded as one of the most tragic examples of royal inbreeding. His parents, Philip IV of Spain and Mariana of Austria, were uncle and niece. This continued that long-standing Habsburg tradition of marrying close relatives to preserve power. By the time of Charles's birth, the Habsburg dynasty had become notoriously inbred, leading to a host of genetic issues. Charles faced numerous physical and mental health problems. These included the characteristic Habsburg jaw. This is a pronounced overbite that made eating and speaking difficult. His jaw was so large that he often struggled with basic activities, including swallowing food. Additionally, he suffered from developmental delays, epilepsy, and early baldness. Doctors later reported that his heart was abnormally small, akin to the size of a peppercorn. He also had severely damaged internal organs and only 1 testicle. Perhaps the most damaging consequence of Charles's condition was his inability to produce an heir. Despite 2 marriages, he was childless, which ultimately marked the end of the Habsburg dynasty in Spain. Modern researchers speculate that genetic kidney disorders, enzymatic issues, or a malfunctioning pituitary gland may have contributed to his inability to father children. His lengthy periods of ill health, and his eventual death at just 38 left Europe in a state of uncertainty over who would succeed him. Charles II's reign exemplifies the dangers of royal inbreeding and the disastrous impact it had on the Habsburg legacy. His tragic life and death signified the end of a dynasty that had ruled over much of Europe for centuries. Marion Stout. The 19th century crime story of Marion Ira Stout and Sarah Littles remains one of the most chilling in Rochester history. Sarah was trapped in an abusive marriage to the womanizing and violent Charles Little, so she found herself drawn into an illicit affair with her brother Marion. Fearing that Charles would expose their secret, the siblings devised a dark plan to silence him forever. In 1858, they lured Charles to a waterfall, where Marion bludgeoned him with a mallet. The crime seemed to go unnoticed, but their cover was blown when a piece of Sarah's clothing was discovered near the body. The investigation quickly pointed to Marion, and he was arrested along with his sister. The pair, along with other family members, became local celebrities as the trial drew attention across the region. Stout was found guilty of murder and sentenced to hang. Despite pleas from notable figures like Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass, his clemency request was denied. On October 22, 1858, Marion Ira Stout was hanged in the Monroe County Jail. However, the execution was far from smooth. Stout hung for nearly 8 minutes before he died. He was buried in an unmarked grave at Mount Hope Cemetery, not far from some of the most prominent residents of Victorian Rochester. This grim tale of betrayal, murder, and a desperate attempt to conceal a forbidden affair left a permanent scar on Rochester's history. Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, famous for his theory of evolution, was worried about the effects of inbreeding in his own family. His wife, Emma Wedgwood, was his first cousin, and Darwin feared that their children might have health problems because of this. New research has shown that Darwin's concerns were not unfounded. Studies of the Darwin and Wedgwood family trees suggest that inbreeding may have caused some of the health issues their children faced. Darwin and Emma had 10 children. Sadly, 3 of them died young, often from bacterial infections, which are more common in inbred families. 3 other children, despite marrying, did not have children of their own. This could suggest infertility, another problem linked to inbreeding. Research of both the Darwin and Wedgwood families showed that many members married close relatives. This likely led to the genetic problems their children experienced. But his children's health problems and infertility matched his worries. Darwin had noticed that inbred plants didn't grow well. He feared that humans could suffer the same effects. It turns out, his worries about the risks of inbreeding were likely true. Bonus: the blue fugits. The stereotype of inbred Appalachians is largely unfounded. This is according to a 1980 study published in Central Issues in Anthropology. It found that inbreeding rates in the region were similar to those in other parts of the U.S., but there are exceptions to this, one of the most famous being the blue fugits of Kentucky. The story of the blue fugits began around 1820 when Martin Fugit, who had moved from France to Kentucky, married Elizabeth Smith. The couple had 7 children, 4 of whom had blue skin. This unusual condition was caused by a genetic disorder known as methemoglobinemia. This is when the blood contains abnormally high levels of methemoglobin. Methemoglobin is a protein that cannot release oxygen effectively. The result for some was cyanosis, which gives the skin a bluish tint. Other symptoms could include fatigue, seizures, and developmental delays. Living in a remote area with limited travel options, the Fugit family had few marriage prospects. This led to some inbreeding within the family. For example, Martin and Elizabeth's son reportedly married his own aunt. Over time, the family became known locally as the Blue Fugits. As travel improved and more members married outside the family, the rate of methemoglobinemia decreased. Today, anyone with the condition can have their blue skin fade within minutes by taking a tablet of methylene blue. This helps convert their defective blood protein back to normal hemoglobin. The blue fugits remains a fascinating example of how genetics and isolation can produce rare and striking results. That's a wrap on our look at 17 of the most shocking cases of incest and inbreeding in history. While these stories might be surprising, they highlight the crucial role genetics play in our health and the effects of isolation on families. It's important to learn from the past and understand how genetics can work positively to prevent similar situations today. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more captivating history stories. See you in the next video.